Bienvenidos una vez más al segmento Al Día en Louisville. Gracias por estar con nosotros. Este día tenemos a dos personas súper especiales con nosotros, al señor Amos y Izerimana, a Vivian Marin. Welcome. Gracias por estar con nosotros. Para nosotros es una gran oportunidad hacer esta colaboración con Metro TV porque nos permite compartir información, noticias y eventos importantes para la comunidad, y lo podemos hacer en español. Me parece que es la primera vez que Metro TV hace esto, y pues es una gran oportunidad para nosotros. Y de nuevo les doy la bienvenida y gracias por estar acá.
Gracias.
Por cierto, me gustaría felicitarte, Amos. I would like to congratulate Amos because I know recently you were one of the honorees of the Mosaic Awards. So, felicitaciones en español.
Gracias.
I know it's a great honor. Maybe next year you can be one.
And you are also an honoree. So thank you.
I got it a couple years ago.
Yes.
I think it's a great honor too. And we were able to be there and applaud you and enjoy the event. So I think it's one of the best events of the year.
It is.
So Amos, tell us a little bit about you. I know you have a super story, you know, since you emigrate from Africa, live as a refugee for many years, then move to the U.S., the United States, and then go to college, and you have how many titles or degrees? Like two, and now you are in just a few, and now you are in charge of the Office of Immigrant Affairs, and the office that is now dedicated to help the refugee community and the immigrant community. So it's a whole kind of like circular you are doing this. Yeah. Tell us about that. Tell us about your story and what it means for you.
Yeah. Thank you, Jose, for having me. I would do this in Spanish, but my Spanish is not as great. But I did get a bit of your introduction, so I was like, I feel like you know, I know what I'm doing here. But
speaking and learning Spanish in Costa Rica.
Yes, I lived in Costa Rica for some time, so I learned some Spanish. So
something tells me that he really understands more than he.
Yeah. But my story, it's very long, but I'm very grateful for it. It's created who I am and has really gotten me where I am right now. As you mentioned, I was born during a civil war in Burundi. Burundi, for those that don't know, is Central East Africa, right below Rwanda, and many people don't know that the Rwandan, conflict there stemmed from Burundi, because Burundi and Rwanda used to be one territory many years back under German occupation, and then they were split into two. So it's really similar culture, similar history, and so in 1993, Burundi went through civil conflict, which stemmed into 1994 conflict in Rwanda. So I was born around that time, and my family fled to Tanzania, where we became refugees, and we lived there for 12 years.
You were a kid?
Yeah, I was a baby when my family left, and so I didn't get to experience that, but I grew up in the refugee camp. If you ever seen anything about a refugee camp, it's a very tough place to be, especially as a child. The most vivid early memory that I have was there was a cholera outbreak in the refugee camp due to lack of good sanitation, and I remember many children dying due to that. That's one of the most vivid memories that I have when I was younger in the refugee camp. But after 12 years, my family applied to be resettled. You as a refugee, you don't really have a choice of where you're going to go. You just apply, I want to be resettled to another country. And usually you have to also demonstrate why you should be resettled to another country instead of being sent back to your home country, or why it's unsafe for you to stay in the refugee camp. Another time, my family was really unsafe to stay there, and the war in Burundi had not ended, and so we were lucky to be selected to be resettled into the United States, and we came directly right here to Louisville, and learned about this country and this place here, learned English here. I did not speak any English when I came. Yeah, so went to Newcomer Academy, Wagner High School here, and then to Berea College. And then from Berea, I went to Brandeis University for a master's in conflict resolution. And then I went to Costa Rica, the University for Peace, for a master's in international law. And really just, as you really can imagine, the story kind of progressed there from, being in a refugee camp, growing up here. At some point, I served as an unofficial interpreter for my family, as many immigrants do, and many young immigrants do when they come here. And so, my international law degree specifically focused on international humanitarian law, human rights law, and refugee law. And so it was really sort of adding an academic experience to the personal experience that I had, growing up and coming into the United States. So when I returned to Louisville, I worked for a local immigration law firm, specifically working on deportation and removal cases, which really allowed me to not only learn about the various, human rights issues happening in, Central and South America, because the majority of my clients were from that area, but also, really helped me build those skills around immigration law, American immigration law, and how we help families, stay united, but also, seek relief to be able to, to gain, protection and asylum here in the United States. And then from there, where I started working with the city during the pandemic, specifically working with our international populations, with COVID testing and vaccinations, and addressing some of the misinformation and updates that were coming from the federal and state governments. And started that as a contractor, but I loved the work so much that I stayed here after my contract expired, and I'm still working with the city now.
Wow. So now you are the director of the Office for Immigrant Affairs. Right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Now, Vivian, dinos un poquito sobre ti. ¿Tú eres la manager de programas de la oficina?
Programación, sí, encargada de los programas que existen en la oficina.
Ya, explícanos tu trabajo.
Okay. Mi trabajo consiste en organizar los programas y asegurarme que se logren, que se hagan. Y con eso va mucha organización, por supuesto, y también la comunicación con todas las personas y con las personas que van a participar y con las personas que van a ayudar.
En diferentes idiomas.
En diferentes idiomas.
¿Uno de los programas es Rich o no?
Sí. Bueno, el programa principal que tenemos nosotros es el de GLLA, que es un programa de liderazgo, valga la repetición, pero es para líderes nuevos de la ciudad. Y eso es parte de lo que nuestra oficina hace, en empoderar a la comunidad inmigrante refugiada con información.
¿Esta que se llama Welcoming Academy o no?
Ese era el nombre anterior.
Ah, ya.
Ajá, y entonces ahora es Global Louisville Leadership Academy, que es la Academia de Liderazgo de Louisville.
Yeah.
Entonces vienen líderes de varios países. Por ahora van a haber 26 graduandos que se gradúan ahora a finales de septiembre, a principios de julio, ¿no? Agosto primero, y hablan varios idiomas. Y entonces ahí ellos hacen una red de comunicación y se informan de todas las cosas que están pasando en la ciudad. Ellos llevan esa información a sus comunidades y entonces ahí la comunican.
El mayor beneficio es el acceso a la información, ¿no?
Correcto. Eso es parte de empoderar a las personas, porque por muchas veces vamos a hacer algo y no sabemos cómo, dónde ir, qué hacer, y entonces esa es una parte esencial de lo que hacemos.
Qué bien. Ahora, Amos, vamos de nuevo contigo. Since the beginning, the Office of Immigrant Affairs have been, I guess, in business for about 20 years or so, in different forms. But just a few years ago, there wasn't even a budget to do many things. And now the office is growing, and I think it's in a different level, closer to the mayor's office. How is that becoming your responsibility? What do you think about that, and what that means for Louisville? Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think one thing that everybody in the city recognizes is how fast our international population is growing, right? I think when the office first was created, Office for International Affairs, the population was so small, but still, and I think that's one of the unique things about Louisville, that our city leadership at the time was still thinking about how we engage with the world. And then the Office for Globalization also was created before, the population really rose to the, size that we are at right now. I think that really speaks to just how the city is structured and that connection we have to the rest of the world. And so as the population grows, I think it's only fitting that the office also grows, right? To be able to address, the growth, but also the various needs that accompany that growth, right? And so one of the things that I'm very, very proud of that we've been able to do and implement within city government is our language access program. Because as I mentioned, people like myself who are resettled here, who come here, without any English, language proficiency, they need to be able to access the various resources that are available here. They need to be able to find a way to become self-sufficient for their families to thrive. And in the meantime, as they're learning the language, they need to be able to to communicate with somebody who can assist them through that process. Vivian was talking about our Leadership Academy, right? And that's one way that we can help our newcomers to access the various resources and services available to the city, but also our language access for those that have the ability to directly come to city government agencies to request resources, for them to be able to do that. And so that is one way. So and with that, with the program really being created, we now have a language access coordinator in city government, who works with all the city agencies to ensure that they're providing those language services in the ways that we develop our policies, our activities and programs, because then, we are really sharing that responsibility, but also sharing the opportunity to connect with all of our residents, not just the Office for Immigrant Affairs, providing, all of the whole of government, providing the services to everybody regardless of the language that they speak.
So specifically about the language access, initiative, is that a phase that is going right now? Or how is that progressing? Because I know last year was, the first year when they talk about that. Mm-hmm. How is that being implemented? The different agencies are looking to hire interpreters, or what is being done about it?
Yeah, so in 2022, Metro Council passed the ordinance, but we implemented the program in 2023 at the beginning of this administration. And so we started with hiring of a language access coordinator. And then for the past 2 years, we've been able to work with all the 40 plus agencies that are within Metro government to develop language access plans. And so in order for you to provide the services, you have to have a plan for providing those services. And so that's been our initial implementation, so that all of the agencies have, not only a policy, but also a plan for providing language services. So one of the requirements of the ordinance is that all the vital documents. So these are documents that are essential for accessing resources. That could be legal policies. There could be announcements about an essential service that's provided. Those documents must be translated into the top 5 languages that we have in the city.
Which are the top 5?
So the top 5 languages are Spanish, Arabic, Swahili, Somali, and Nepali. Those are the top 5 based on...
Not Chinese, I'm surprised.
Yeah, not Chinese at the moment, but I know that it's growing actually in many other places. The Chinese population is one of our, top 5, communities, but most of them have been here a lot longer. Okay. And so we base our top languages based on JCPS languages, because, you know, as you know, the census is not always reflective of the people that we have in the community because of, you know, the lack. Most of our communities don't fill out the census. So JCPS is the most reflective data that we have for that. And so as far as our language access program is concerned, you know, we're working and building out those plans, but also each department, you know, decides sort of what is the best way that they can provide those services based on the services that they provide. So you have, for example, the Office of Safe and Healthy Neighborhoods that's always in the community. You know, that might be an agency that might, you know, want to have interpreters on site who can, you know, be with them as they're doing their community engagement work. But, you know, with our office as well, we've, you know, obtained some equipment for simultaneous interpretation, for example, something that has not been done in city government. And we, you know, we lend those out to agencies that, you know, may need to do that if they have, you know, any public meetings or other, you know, workshops or things that where they would want to have, you know, people to access or to be able to understand the content that they're providing. And so at the moment, we are really building out that infrastructure so that it will really become part of the services that we provide every day.
Hace unos minutos
Sí.
tú mencionaste a Reach. Sí. Y ahí es donde usamos
Es un ejemplo.
es un ejemplo, exacto. Y en adición a eso, déjame ir un poquito más atrás, que Reach es otro programa que tenemos para pequeños negocios de inmigrantes o refugiados que están tratando de crecer o de comenzar su negocio, para que ellos sepan exactamente el proceso y qué tienen que hacer para que no se encuentren con una sorpresa inesperada cuando están tratando de planear y empezar su negocio. Pero todos los materiales que tenemos en Reach también son traducidos y esos materiales, esos recursos, las personas se lo pueden llevar para poder tener referencia más adelante en qué es lo que tienen que hacer para sus negocios.
¿Puedes explicarnos un poco sobre lo que acaba de decir Amos en cuanto al estatus de la ordenanza de acceso al lenguaje? ¿Cómo se está implementando? Ya explicaste un poquito, pero
sí,
de manera más general.
Sí, se está implementando en que fue una ordenanza, como acabas de decir, que el Council hizo en el 2022, pero diferentes organizaciones y oficinas, ellos deciden de qué manera, dependiendo del servicio que ellos proveen a la comunidad, cómo van a implementar cada plan. Y como dijo Amos, ese plan se utiliza para que ellos tengan un mapa de cómo lo van a hacer. Y entonces, como hay oficinas que trabajan directamente con el público, entonces quizás para ellos sea bueno contratar a una persona que hable el idioma, mientras que otras no tengan contacto con el público, entonces si tienen alguna información o cualquier cosa, entonces ellos pueden hacerlo de otra manera.
Y repíteme los 5 lenguajes en que se están enfocando por la cantidad de personas que hay. ¿Son?
Sí, los 5 lenguajes, y también nos basamos en eso por medio de las escuelas, porque lamentablemente no participamos en el censo como tenemos que hacerlo, y también es un número que varía porque fue hace varios años, entonces cada año la población sigue aumentando, entonces no podemos depender 100% de esos números. Pero sí, la escuela por medio de la escuela nos basamos en que el idioma principal es el español, uno de los 5, el somalí, árabe, ¿qué otra cosa dijimos? Swahili y Nepal.
Gracias. Ahora, Amos, you already told us a little about the language access ordinance and how it's being implemented. Now, in the short term or middle term, looking at the future, what are the plans? What are the projects that you have in mind that you can share with us?
Yeah. So I think, you know, Vivian told you some of the programs that she is running for, you know, within the office. But I think the next big need that we're seeing right now is legal services access to legal services for our newcomers who are either applying for employment authorization cards, asylum applications, and the big one, citizenship. We have many people who have been here for a long time who have not really taken that next step to become U.S. citizens. And as you know, as a U.S. citizen, you have access to a lot more benefits as a resident. Mm-hmm. And so that's one of the things that we're looking into, how we can provide more of that access to legal services for the community, so that we're not only providing, helping provide that next step towards employment, but also for people to be able to take advantage of the benefits that come with being a citizen, like voting. We have elections in November, and that's one of the things that many of our residents who have not taken that next step to become citizens cannot take part in. And so that is one thing that we are looking into at the moment with the office. But also, as you know, we're the second city to become certified as a welcoming city nationally. And that certification really comes with a set of standards to which, the city has to uphold. And so that's in various different areas, from education, economic development, public safety.
Quizás acceso a más recursos financieros o no. Tener ese certificate, to have that certificate, that gives Louisville access to more funds, maybe? Or?
So it gives us access to resources on how we can better integrate and include our immigrant community, but also all communities. And there are it gives us more access to I guess a larger network of other nonprofits, city governments, and philanthropic organizations who are doing this work, and that could translate into more funding for these programs.
Would you say that Louisville is ahead of neighboring cities? Or not?
I will say that Louisville has been a leading city for this work for many years. Again, that's why I say that it's really telling that we've had some sort of office that engages people globally, and so we are in this region the only city that's certified at the moment, right? And so so we are ahead of the curve in really implementing those policies and programs that create a welcoming environment, but also gives a sense of belonging to our newcomers. And that's not to say that Cincinnati or Nashville are not doing their fair share, but we are proactively looking at ways that we can be more welcoming.
Perhaps that's why a lot of immigrants are moving to Louisville, right?
Exactly. And that's one of the benefits of having the certification, right? It really shows somebody who's looking at, let's say, all of our neighboring cities and Louisville, or places where they want to move. They want to see a place that, if they move here, they'll feel at home, right? And so I think that badge, that says we are a welcoming city, or welcome here, really speaks volume.
Yeah. So I was thinking about 20 plus years ago, I was living in Jefferson, but close to Shelby County, and I could see the kind of like the first boom of immigration in Kentucky. A lot of workers moving to the rural, to the farms and horse industry, but it was very noticeable. And at the same time, the first version of the Office of Immigrant Affairs was started, and the Spanish newspaper was started, and many other things in other languages about 20 years ago started. Today, 24 years later, I see another boom, right? Like a lot of people are moving to Louisville for some reason.
Yeah.
How you, as an Office of Immigrant Affairs, are ensuring that these people becomes productive, adapt to the system, but also that the system doesn't collapse? For example, in JCPS, there is a need for more teachers or drivers. Yeah. How are you ensuring or helping ensure that this influx of immigrants are not going to create a problem?
Yeah. So it is, so it's about creating that infrastructure, right? I think when we are proactive in creating a place or systems that enable newcomers to thrive, then those that join our community at a later time will join a system that's already functional, right? And that's why I'm sharing that with our language access program, for example, right now we are setting the foundation, we are building that strong infrastructure so that people can access different services. And I'll give you a few other examples of some of the ways that we're doing that with our REACH program, right? Where not only those entrepreneurs who are starting businesses, but also those that have had businesses for many years can now access different tips and resources for growing their business. The other area, you may have seen this, for example, with our the city's revolving loan fund, which is available to all businesses that seek funding from the city. We added a Sharia compliant modification for our Muslim borrowers. And so really just creating that infrastructure where, if the city has Sharia compliant modification, all of the other, service providers, loan providers, for example, in our community can really look at the city as an example and create a similar infrastructure so that those who are, business owners and are looking for funding can tap into those services. And the other thing too, I would say, is we recently had a series of workshops for nonprofits who are serving immigrants and refugees, right? And so we recognize that growth is happening pretty quickly, right? And like, for example, right now, the Congolese community is one of our largest newcomers, outside of our Cuban, Haitian, and Central American newcomers. And for many years, we didn't have an organization that primarily services that population. But now, we have Sea Forward Ministries, which is an organization based in the Butcher neighborhood that is really helping with the integration of that community. And so our nonprofit workshops really helped these nonprofits that participated to learn more about how they can access, either federal grants or federal funds and resources, but also building capacity for themselves to be able to assist the communities that they assist. So, in short, to answer your question, is that we are building that infrastructure so that we have a community that really is ready to welcome all the newcomers that come to Louisville.
Sí, si yo pudiera añadir otra cosa también, uno de nuestras funciones es comunicación.
Sí.
Y nos comunicamos con nuestros asociados, ya sea otras organizaciones como La Casita, Americana Community Center, las escuelas, y todos conocemos en conjunto qué viene, cuál es el problema, cómo hay que prepararse, y no dependemos de una sola organización, sino entre todos tratamos de buscar la solución. Y claro, lamentablemente las soluciones no se sacan de una bolsa, ¿me entiendes? Y entonces hay que trabajar en base a eso. Y tenemos reuniones donde nos convocamos varias veces al año también para discutir eso y hacer planes y cómo podemos. Y otra vez, yendo al plan de la Academia de Liderazgo, muchas personas han tomado por su propio interés en ayudar a las personas, en ellos mismos hacer las cosas que tienen que hacer. Y entonces al unirnos todos, ya, esto se hace de esta manera, o no, esto se hace de esta otra manera, o puedo buscar fondos aquí o allá. Y así es como el sistema se va apoyando en la base de todos, no del gobierno o no de una organización en particular, sino es una base pareja.
So, looking at the future, Amos, tell us something new, something that nobody knows, that, I know you're working on some things, but can you tell us something?
Yeah.
Like, I know that.
Peligroso porque yo tengo que decir algo acerca de Amos. Por supuesto, estoy súper orgullosa de él y de su visión y de trabajar en la oficina con gente brillante. Y lo que pasa es que siempre están adelante, ¿ves? Buscando una manera, una solución, qué podemos hacer para mejorar algo que está sucediendo. Y ya lo estoy empezando a conocer y cada vez que él pone esa cara de pensar en algo, pues él sabe lo que estoy diciendo. Él está pensando en una idea de algo y por eso estoy bien orgullosa de estar en esta oficina.
No. I cannot follow and speak like that fast. Yeah, something that people don't know.
Yeah.
So one of the things that we're doing right now, we are creating an international advisory council. I know that it has existed in some form again. This is not anything new. I know that it existed in under Mayor Jerry Abramson in the past, and the mission and really purpose of this council is to have a group of community members to help us as the office and the city in general to stay updated and abreast of all the different needs of our immigrant refugee community. But in addition to that too, as we, both Vivian and I have mentioned, is that we cannot do this work alone. We have a number of community partners with whom we work on a regular basis, such as alDía, to communicate the various information that we feel needs to get to the international community, but also to do the work, right? And not to go back, to the pandemic, but when we all faced, an emergency that impacted all of us, it was our community partners, the community that stepped up and said, we want to do our part, to ensure that our community remains safe. And so we want to be able to, again, create that platform where the community also has a stake in the work that we're doing. Because we have several nonprofits who are doing the work. We have several city agencies who are saying we want to collaborate with the community. And so our role as the office is to be a connector and that facilitator. And so this council that we're creating is for us to better have a direct connection with the international community.
When is the council gonna start working or being formed?
Yep. So this summer, we're working on several dates on when we will announce the official launch, but also on for them to really help us come up with some of those priorities that we should be working on. We may see in our office that legal services is one of those top priorities, but we also know that there are many other needs in the community, and so one of the tasks that will be asking the council members to help us with is identify those top priorities that we can work on right now. As you know, we have an annual convening in September of all of our community partners, and that's always good to have, to listen and to hear some of the updates, ways that we've done very well as a community to be more welcoming, but also ways that there's been gaps that we can work on. But with this council, we'll be able to address those needs on a regular basis, and be able to, again, develop those.
Who's being invited to the advisory council?
So we are inviting community members who are involved in the community, who are involved with newcomers, as well as first generation and the various diaspora associations that we have. At the same time, as Vivian mentioned, our Leadership Academy, right now we have around 140 graduates from that program. And so what we're trying to do with the council is also provide an opportunity for the participants, the leaders who go through our program, to continue to serve as advisory council members in the future, when this inaugural cohort has moved on.
Thank you. Vivian, explíquenme un poquito sobre lo que va a ser el consejo, Advisory Council, ¿cómo se dice en español?
Consejo de consejo.
El consejo de inmigrantes.
La junta de consejo será. Son personas que se le han llamado, que forman parte de la comunidad, que participan, que saben la necesidad y que están involucrados, porque ya pueden opinar, pueden ayudar, pueden buscar soluciones, pero no a medida que van pasando las cosas, no después de.
Yeah.
Porque ¿quién más tiene mejor conocimiento de las personas que están adentro? Y es bien interesante cuando se reúnen todas estas organizaciones, todas estas personas, no solamente ver el lado humano, ¿verdad? Sino también ver cómo activamente buscan una respuesta, cómo podemos hacer todas las ideas que salen. Es increíble, es hermoso.
Gracias. Thank you. My last question. You are like the leader of immigrants right now in Louisville.
I don't know if that's the right title to give me.
5 things any immigrant needs to know about Louisville or go to 5 different places. What would be the ones?
Oh, wow. Very big question. I think, I mean, places, people to go, I think the community in general has so much, that, you can experience. Like the Speed Museum, for example, has a great exhibition right now that you can go and learn about, Indian art and culture, and, Asian American art.
I think they have the free Sundays still or no?
Yes, they do. Yes, those community days that you can always go to. The Performing Arts Center has some exhibitions that are coming up. I believe this Sunday they'll have Asian American art on display. But also there are some of those places that we are very familiar, with, like Americana Community Center, like Casita Center. I mentioned See Forward Ministries. All those are, locations that are providing, services, but also ways you can network with people from, all over the world, right? But the other thing that Louisville is known for is our parks. Right, and Iroquois Park is one of those places. My parents live nearby, and every time I go see them, I pass by Iroquois, just really to take in, the experience.
I'm going to interrupt you. The restaurants. Okay.
I was getting to it. You're stealing my thunder.
You still have one more too. Do you remember how many restaurants are new in the city that represent so many nationalities that you don't have to leave Louisville to visit every corner of the world through cuisine?
Yes.
It's incredible.
I think that's one of the ways, maybe I'm wrong, but that's one of the ways or lines that WorkFest was using at the beginning, go around the world in 3 days and taste food from all over the world. Yeah. So continue with your answer. I'm sorry.
Well, first I will add to it and provide a few things that in the same way. 2 years ago, we launched our global dining passport. It has 30 different international restaurants that you can try. And so we are working on making that available digitally, so anybody can access it, but also all the other restaurants that are available. Also in collaboration with Metro TV, we've started a new show called Dining Around the World in Louisville. And really, we're just visiting different international restaurants and learning about the business owners, the cultures that they represent, the languages, and the cuisine itself.
For sure, I just remember something. Here with us, we have the first founder of the first Cuban restaurant in Louisville.
Yeah.
This is like 20 plus years ago. And it was called Mambo's. Mambo? Yes. It was the very first Cuban restaurant in Louisville. And it was great. Actually, one of my big parties was there.
Yeah, so that's one of the beautiful things about Louisville. We are foodie city, we are parks city, the festival city, and so there's a lot to experience in Louisville. And so, but one of the things that I really, I know it's not number 5, but one of the things that I really always emphasize with our newcomers, especially those who are coming from refugee camps, where you really haven't had an opportunity to leave this confined space, is we always encourage our newcomers to branch out into the community. Newcomer Academy, for example, always every year they have a field trip downtown just to show the kids a different side of the city. And so there's just so much in every single part of the city that I would encourage everybody who's able to just really explore our parks, our cuisine, but also the different neighborhoods.
You know, I'm glad that you mentioned that because now with the cultural pass for the library, that's a good opportunity to go see so many places and for free.
Yeah.
Dime eso en español.
Ay, sí.
Porque eso se me había olvidado.
Que una buena oportunidad para poder visitar diferentes lugares en la ciudad es yendo a la biblioteca y pedir el pasaporte un pasaporte cultural, y así se puede ir a diferentes lugares que normalmente uno no puede ir ahora que los niños están de vacaciones.
Y con el pasaporte pueden entrar gratis a
Diferentes, sí.
decenas de lugares.
Sí.
Pero bueno, gracias, Amos. Thank you, Vivian.
Espérate.
Sí,
Espérate, algo bien importante, que nos sigan, porque tu show,
¿Dónde?
espérate, tu show se va a ver una vez, pero van a salir más cosas nuevas, más eventos, más comunicación. Que nos sigan en social media, en Facebook, en Instagram, y también tenemos un newsletter. Y entonces, otra cosa súper importante que quería decir era, cuando visitan algún website de louisville.gov, arriba, en la parte de arriba, hay un botón que puede traducirse la página automáticamente. Entonces, si necesitan un permiso, si necesitan llamar a 311, 311, cualquier información que necesitan, pueden ir y obtenerlo en el idioma que necesitan.
Bueno, gracias. Thank you, Amos, again. Thank you for being with us again en alDía en Louisville. Y gracias a todos por vernos. Y como dijo Vivian, síganos en, ¿qué es? Oficina de
Immigrant Affairs.
Immigrant Affairs en Facebook o en social media. Y de nuevo, gracias por estar con nosotros. Hasta la próxima.